Hello friends, and welcome to the Hanged Man in the Moon. If this is your first time here, welcome. Thank you for coming. I'm pleased to meet you. If you've been here before, thank you for returning. I'm truly honored. Friends, if you are a returning visitor, you may notice that the image might be a little clearer than usual. Yeah, I've gotten a new light to my setup, and let's see if I can give you a little bit more consistently clearer images from now on. Also, if you are a returning visitor, you probably know that this is my series in which I dive into topics related to living the intentional life, and I use tarot and oracle cards to help us explore those topics. So, before we dive into this week's tarot and oracle spread, let me ask you, have you ever heard the term honeymoon period? Now, it could be a relationship, of course. It could be a real honeymoon, but not necessarily. It could also be a new job or a project at your job. It could be a home, a new home, for example, a new house, a new apartment. It could be a new interest or a hobby. You've taken up piano or painting or singing. Yeah? At first, we begin this new thing that we've wanted to start and we feel wonderful. It's new, it's interesting, it could be exciting. Have you also noticed that honeymoon periods almost always come to an end? It could be, the honeymoon period could be pretty long, but even a long honeymoon period usually comes to an end at some point. And at that point, those things that we felt were interesting quirks or funny little aspects, things that we thought, I could get used to that, those things suddenly start to get a little irritating or annoying. They start to claw at us, to cloy. And this week's Tarot and Oracle spread is going to ask us to examine those times when we say that the honeymoon is over. What do we do? Even those of us living intentional lives have honeymoon periods, and those honeymoon periods come to an end. What is our response to that? Do we toss it out like yesterday's newspaper? Do we hunker down and ride the rapids through this period of endings of honeymoons? Or is there a better way? We're going to examine this today. So, the tarot and oracle spread has already been laid. Let me show you. This is the third week that I've been using this spread. And if you haven't seen the first and second weeks, let me give you a brief outline of what it is. This is inspired by the Ace of Swords from the central tarot deck called the Tarot of the Holy Light. And I've already done a 50-day deep dive into that deck. I've got a playlist, go check it out. So, it's based on the Ace of Swords. So what we have are 3 tarot decks lined up vertically. The central deck is the sword of the card, and so that is the main message. On either side of the card and the spread, there was a sun section of planets and a moon section of planets. So the tarot cards on the left give us the conscious side of the spread. The cards on the right give us the unconscious side of the spread. And then you'll also notice that there were 2 cards flanking the central line. Now those are from an oracle deck, and those give us advice both for the conscious and the unconscious aspects of this card, of this spread. And if you're curious about these decks, they're beautiful decks, aren't they? They're just gorgeous. I will have a short clip at the end of this video that tells you the names of the creators, the names of the decks. Also, in the description box below, there will be links for you to go and look at and purchase these decks if you are interested in them. They are all still available, to my knowledge, at least at the time of this video. So, go check them out and purchase one or all of them. Now remember, I do not get any reimbursement or any commission from you using these links. They're just there for your convenience. So, friends, we just saw the spread. I just gave you the explanation. Let's dive into the central 3 cards of this spread from the Tarot of the Holy Light. Here they are. For this column of the spread, we had, from top to bottom, the 5 of Cups upright, the 2 of Cups reversed, and the Moon upright. This is interesting. If you've watched the first 2 videos with this spread, you will have remembered that we've had this kind of balance of upright and reverse, but in reverse. Yeah? For the first 2 videos, the central card was upright and the top and the bottom cards were reversed. This time, it's been flipped on its head. Yeah? The central card is upright, the central card is reversed, and the top and the bottom are upright. And so we're going to start, as usual, with the central card, with the 2 of Cups. The 2 of Cups in reverse. Now, when we look at it upright, this might help you to look at it upright. What do we see? We see the Sun and the Moon. We see 2 cups, one facing up, one facing down, each held by a different hand. And we see 2 creatures, one reddish and one greenish, doing the Ouroboros thing. Yeah? Each one is eating the tail of the other. And so this is a card of unions, of merging of diverse aspects. In reverse, what do we get? Now in reverse, this is the Moon in Capricorn. You'll notice in this column of the spread, there are a lot of moon associations. So this in reverse is the Moon in Capricorn. Capricorn, the worker, right? And this is the card from which I took that idea of the honeymoon being over. Because one essential idea contained in the reversed image of this card is that what once seemed charming and interesting is now becoming cloying or irritating. Yeah, that honeymoon being over aspect is part of this. Yeah? What once was wonderful and new and fresh is now no longer new and fresh, and those little things, our attention starts going to those little things. Like he or she flatulates, or the boss says these things all the time that I don't like, or my fingers are starting to feeling the pain of doing chopsticks all of the time, or that's becoming boring. Yeah, aspects of the new bright shining thing start to become irritating. It could also be that past wounds, stuck emotions, are being triggered, and only the committed one can see their way through. Now, oftentimes, those things that suddenly become cloying or irritating in our partner, have you noticed that? Are often because they are triggering something in us. If they weren't triggering something, we wouldn't even notice them. Or we wouldn't notice them as intensely as we do. This card is asking us to be the proactive managers of our psychoaffective climate. Now, our mind, emotional climate. We can manage that. We can choose our reactions if we stay open and move with the powerful flow of intention. Yeah? Being open, being able to ride the current of intention also is the state in which we are choosing our reactions to the events that happen in our lives. We see something we don't like, perhaps, and then we put our attention to something we do like. That's managing the psychological and the emotional, the psychoaffective climate of our lives. That's part of living life intentionally. And that's what this card is reminding us that we have the power to do. Speaking of power, it's also here to remind us that the less that we let our positivity and our power leak out, the more that we are going to be able to be present to our lives and the lives of those around us. Now, when we let our power leak out and our positivity leak out by focusing on, he always coughs, he doesn't close his mouth when he chews, she doesn't bring me flowers anymore, the boss doesn't pay enough attention to me anymore. Now, all of those little triggers that we have are also signs that we're letting our power and our energy diffuse without use out into the world without being of help. We're losing our energy. We're losing our power. So, this card is here to ask us to remember that we have that power. We can manage ourselves. We can manage our climate. We can manage where our energy and attention is going. And that we can expect that every honeymoon is going to have an end. And that's not a bad thing. That's a learning experience. And as we move deliberately through that end of the honeymoon period, we grow. Our relationship with that new thing deepens, strengthens. However bright and shiny it seems at the beginning, that's not a strong, deep relationship. It's something that we could easily toss aside once we start feeling uncomfortable. Have you ever noticed yourself doing that? I've done it before. And I'm not just talking about plastic containers. We can toss people aside when we start noticing things that become a little bit irritating or unsettling. Now, we're not talking about people who are aggressive or people who are doing harm or ill to us, but those people who their humor strikes us wrong, or they don't particularly have the same views as we do, and their views irritate us a little bit. They're not evil people, they're not bad people, they're just not, we're not in alignment. Have you noticed there are times when we throw people or objects or things aside when they start feeling a little bit off to us? Rather than redirecting our attention towards those positive aspects and riding the current through this ending of the honeymoon period. And when we do ride that current through the end of a honeymoon period, we'll notice that our relationship with that thing has deepened. It could be a person. It could be an object. I mean, I've had a crystal before. Just put something very, very light and easy to take. Yeah, I've purchased a crystal before. I've gotten it. I've enjoyed it, and I've noticed a flaw in it, perhaps. Or I dropped it, and there was a little piece cracked off. So what am I going to do? Am I going to say, "Oh, now it's bad now. It's not good anymore. It's not as good as I thought it was. I'm going to toss it away." Or do I keep it? Do I remember the beauty that it was there at first, that the reason that I got it in the first place? And then, do I continue working with it? And in continuing to work with it, do I begin to appreciate differently those things that I had at the end of the honeymoon period started noticing as flaws? Do they take on a different quality, a different character? Some crystals just shatter. And then you're like, I've got these pieces. But sometimes there's just like a little chip that gets knocked off. And does that now make its value gone? Is the value now, has the value now disappeared? Can we find new value? That's what this card is asking us to consider. And from this card, let's move right up to the top, to the Five of Cups. Let me pull it out here for you. What do we see here? We see a vessel, a large vessel, being held by a hand. And that vessel is pouring a large quantity of water into 5 cups. And 2 of those cups have been knocked over by the overflowing of water. And when we think of perhaps a Rider-Waite-Smith card, maybe that's what you're more used to. What do we see? We see a figure standing up. Before that figure, there are 3 cups knocked over. Behind that figure, there are usually 2 cups upright. But that figure is focusing on those cups that have been knocked over. Here, there are only 2. And you'll notice that those 2 were small. The bigger ones, the larger vessels, are still upright and full to overflowing. That, I think, is an important aspect to this card. Now, the association for this card is Scorpio. Well, the association for the card at the bottom is Scorpio ruled by the moon. It's also Mars in Capricorn. So we've got that Capricorn association between the 2 and the 5 of Cups. Yeah? 2 of Cups reversed was the moon in Capricorn. The 5 of Cups upright is Mars in Capricorn. Yeah, so there's a lot of energy getting work done. But there's also Scorpio ruled by the moon, which is the moon, the watery aspect, and Scorpio, another water sign, but a little bit harsher. A harsher aspect in the moon sign. So what do we have here? We have the overflow of divine blessings, which knock over some aspects because there's just so much coming. So some of our water is spilled. We still have some spilled milk here, but not all of it. And we can also notice that the spilled water feeds the garden around us. When a couple of our cups get knocked over, that fluid feeds our environment, whatever that is. How does it feel when our cups get knocked over? For example, here where 2 of our 5 cups get knocked over, where is our attention going to go to? Remember, that's what this card is reminding us about. The 2 of Cups reversed is reminding us that we can direct our attention. Where is our attention going to be directed in this circumstance? Are we going to direct our attention at the spilled cups, which are feeding our environment, and there are good aspects there? Or are we going to focus on the large, full, to overflowing cups? And then as we direct our attention here, then perhaps notice that, well, that fluid that has spilled is also feeding what is around me. This card is asking us to make the best of what has been given. And a lot is being given. A lot. We are blessed every day. And when we're open, living an intentional life, we're open to receiving those blessings every moment of every day. And sometimes we shut down. That's okay. We don't want to whip ourselves for those times that we are shut down, because then we shut down even more, and it's even more difficult to open back up. So we allow ourselves to have those moments of noticing that the honeymoon is over, and then redirect our energy and our focus and open back up. And then we can make the best of what we have, what has been given, and so much has been given. Now, Mars in Capricorn is a reminder that in this situation, we might get that feeling of the winter solstice, yeah? The longest night. The darkness in our life has overcome the light. But here we are reminded that Mars in Capricorn, that there's a warm ray of hope which is now bursting forth. Yeah, we've come past the end of the growing darkness and we're entering into the growing light with the energy of Mars. with that fire. So we can devote our energy on tasks that will bear fruit in the future. In this darkness that we might be feeling, this is an opportunity to plant seeds that will grow, seeds that we know will grow. Not just random seeds. We want to be attentive. We want to be deliberate to what seeds we're going to give our energy to. That's the Capricorn energy, right? Because at this time we begin shaping our future with our creative will, with our focus and attention, with our Capricorn energy. Because our human will, when we think of fives, what do we think of? We can think of the four elements and the fifth being spirit or the human will. And the human will can direct and shape the four elements. And that's another thing this card is here to remind us of. This fifth card, we notice the potential for disappointment, but this five is also telling us that yes, it's our will that can shape what we have been given. All of the blessings that we have can be shaped and used and planted to grow even more. And those things that are planted are watered by those spilled cups. Those disappointments feed our garden. The tears we shed nurture the garden, nurture those seeds that we are planting. And now we move into the moon. The moon being the moon. But the moon in a Rider-Waite-Smith deck is a water element card, right? Here, the moon is Aquarius. Aquarius, something that we get a little bit confused about. Aquarius is an air sign, but Aquarius, the name is water, right? It's the water bearer. It's an air sign which carries water. Interesting, right? So, this card is here to remind us that only the person who is conscious in their unconscious will be able to navigate this time and space. Conscious in their unconscious. What the heck does that mean? Those of us who are able to be aware of the unconscious realm, who are able to give attention to those elements in the unconscious. Now, some people call that shadow work, and shadow work is part of that, but it's not all shadow down there. There are gems, there are jewels, there's treasure down there. There's gold in Vendar caverns instead of Vendar hills. So this card is reminding us that those of us who give attention to our unconscious environment, our subconscious terrain, can navigate those times of the Two of Cups reversed much more easily. The moon. What does the moon do? Traditionally, the moon was seen as the sphere that gathers the energy of the other lights, the sun and the other stars, the visible stars. Yeah, that would be five other visibles. Just a moment. Okay, Mars, Venus, Jupiter, Mercury, Saturn. 5 other stars, and the sun, gathering all of that energy and spoon feeding us on the earth. Sometimes a lot at the full moon, sometimes just a little bit at the quarter or the crescent moon, and sometimes, okay, it's time to take a break from all that extra energy at the new moon. Yeah, the moon spoon feeds us as much as we can handle at the time. So remember, we've got this overpouring of blessings in the 5, and sometimes that overpouring can knock us over. The moon is here to remind us that as we are able to navigate our unconscious, we're also being fed in that darkness, in portions that we can handle. And those of us who can cultivate our inner balance are safe from the seeming exterior chaos. And some of that chaos can be an overflowing of blessing. But when we are settled in our unconscious, when we have balance from within, we can navigate that. And that's living the intentional life. Being stable in our boats in this powerful current of intention. That's what this moon card is here to remind us of. We have that possibility. And this card is reminding us that matter is permeated by Sophia in the image of the moon. Now, Sophia has come from Kether down into Malkut and has permeated all of the material realm with wisdom here in the moon card in this deck. And we also notice that this pool, in this intuitive pool, the creature rises from there. Yeah, the chaos, the two dogs are in fighting. That's the environment that we sometimes notice that we're in. We'll also notice that the creature is rising from the unconscious, and a lot of people are afraid of that. But that is us. That is our own stuff. And if we allow ourselves to access what we can handle, we will be able to ride the current much better. And some things could be challenging. Some things will be triggers. That's part of that end of the honeymoon condition. Those triggers become more obvious. But this card is here to remind us that we can navigate it. And how can we know that even more? On this door here, there are two buildings on either side. On this side, there's a door. At the top of the door, there is a six-sided Star of David. And this six-sided Star of David is here to remind us that we have the power. This is so we have the shelter to go into, and we have the power of all of the four elements at our avail. And again, using our human will from the fifth Five of Cups, we can shape those elements. So what are these three cards all trying to tell us? Let's move right back to this card here because it's all encapsulated here. There are going to be times when the honeymoon is over, living the intentional life. But we can navigate those. We can select where we place our attention. We can manage our emotional, psychological climate. Make the best of what is. Realize that we are always overflowing with blessings. Sometimes those blessings knock over a couple of our cups, and those feed our ground. And it's in that ground that we are planting the seeds, the Capricorn seeds of what will grow in the future. And with the moon, we also know that those triggers that we are feeling coming up at the end of the honeymoon period, we can navigate those as well. We have a way. Yeah? We have wisdom being fed to us by Sophia, which is here in all aspects of the material realm. We can navigate it by placing attention to our unconscious and placing attention on those triggers, but not being obsessed and drawn into the triggers. There's a very important distinction there. We notice the triggers, we learn from the triggers. And we place our attention also on the good aspects, the things that we like, the things that made us fall in love with this, that made us want this at the beginning. That's living the intentional life. That's being able to continue living the intentional life. Starting an intentional life can be easy, peasy, lemon squeezy. Because it's new, it's fun, it's exciting, it's fresh. And then the honeymoon is over. And what that end of the honeymoon is like is up to us. What we do with that end of the honeymoon is up to us. This is such an important, meaningful part of the spread. We've still got 2 columns to go through. They're a little lighter. Let's move into the conscious element of this, the conscious column of the spread on the left. Here they are. Here are the cards. I think I got myself back together again. Here we are with the conscious column of this Ace of Swords spread. And from the top to the bottom, we had the Sun, the Queen of Wands, and the King of Swords. Beautiful, beautiful. What do we want to put our attention to? Where should we begin this spread? Remember, we're going from that sense of the honeymoon being over, right? So, let's start at the bottom this time. That's the direction I lay these cards. Let's start with the bottom, then move to the top, and then move to the center. That's my feeling for this spread. Yeah, for this column of the spread. We'll start with the Knight of Swords. The Knight of Swords, air. For me, swords are air, knights are air. So they're air of air. That's a powerful mental blast, right? Yeah, wind being fed by wind. It's a powerful blast. So the Knight of Swords is ambition. The action-oriented one, the one who is driven to succeed. Fast thinking, quick on their feet or on their hooves, right? And it's not a startling Knight of Swords image. We've got a knight riding a horse. We've got this beautiful set of white carnations or white mums down at the bottom, which in Asia would be a flower for funerals, but I don't think that's what the creator was thinking. And so we've got this rider riding passionately, fiercely, for me, into their future. They're not riding into the past. A lot of people would say that this rider is moving, some people would say that the rider is moving from right to left, so they're moving into the past. Could be. But for me, that's not always the way I will read an individual card. And that's not the direction I see this card going. This card is leaping from that central message of the spread of that end of the honeymoon period. So we leap out of that sensation of things starting to get a little wonky and irritating. We gather our ambition together, we gather our quick wits together, and we leap forward into the unknown. Now this card can be aggressive. This card can be a charging warrior. I don't think that's the aspect we want to leap into. Yeah? But we want to be willing and able to leap into the unknown. And then we get the Sun card. Beautiful Sun card. Interesting. For those of us, not me, but those of us who get creeped out by naked babies on horses in the Pamela Coleman Smith Sun card, this is perhaps a less triggering card, but it could be a more triggering card. Why? Because we've got these children jumping into water where it could be unsafe. We've got a child on a carousel going around unsupervised. Sorry. I love Pamela Coleman Smith's Sun card. I don't know why people get triggered by it. Anyways, we got the Sun card. We've got one child here flying an airplane with an old-fashioned aviator hat. We've got one child leaping into the pool. Very summer kind of activity. We've got another child on a merry-go-round, on a horse. Another summertime fair activity, right? So the Sun, positivity, optimism, the joy of the child, fun and warmth. So we're leaping into the unknown with the Knight of Swords. And what are we leaping into? Where do we want our attention to go? We want our attention to go to our innate positivity, our innate optimism and fun and inner warmth. Those feelings that we had when we first encountered and received that thing we really wanted. We want to get that back. Because that's where our power is. That's where the power of intention is. It's vitality. And it's attainment. Attainment. We've got what we want. We've attained. We've still attained even after the honeymoon period seems to be over. We are still the attainers of that thing we have wanted. And instead of thinking, well, I thought I wanted this, but maybe I was wrong. Instead of going there, we can remember that we are the successful ones. We've gotten it. And then we move to the Queen of Wands, because with that power of the mind, being willing to leap into the unknown, with our sunny positivity, our childlike optimism regained, we can be this powerful woman. Powerful woman in the card is a non-gendered woman. Yeah? You have the Queen of Wands within you, whether you are male, whether you are female, whether you are non-binary, whether you are cisgendered, transgendered, whatever you are and however you claim yourself to be, we all have the Queen of Wands within us. And we can do our Queen of Wands-ness in the world. What is the Queen of Wands? I love this card. Look at the hair on that person. Reminds me of the mane of a lion. Now, a mane of a lion is a male lion, right? But this is a female presenting person. Makes me think non-binary. Anyways, so we've got this beautiful, beautiful hair reminding me of a powerful mane. We've got the sunflower in front of her. That sunflower from the sun card, right, is echoed right here in this card. We've got a beautiful black cat in front of the Queen of Wands, peeking their heads right above the roses below. Can you see that? That beautiful little cat face? Lovely, lovely card. We've got flowers, we've got roses, we got, looks like we've got a couple of, oh no, they're all roses down there. They're different kinds of roses. And we have what looks like maybe bamboo behind her. Hard to tell, but this is a beautiful card. And the Queen of Wands, you can feel her independence here, can't you? Can you see her determination to be who she is going to be? Of a self-actualized, passionate person. This person has courage, confidence, is self-assured, and is curious about what they're going to do with all of their power, with all of their energy and their courage and their creativity. Now, this is the independent creator who looks at something and says, I'm going to do something with that. Or I'm going to do something and put it there. It's that kind of powerful person. And that is who we are innately. And it was that person who first attained the thing that they wanted. Beginning the honeymoon, which eventually ended, but that's okay. Because again, as we traverse the end of the honeymoon, our relationship with whatever that is, be it person, object, action, activity, whatever it is, deepens and grows. And that light of Mars in Capricorn starts to reveal itself again. And we rediscover our inner Queen of Wands and we create more. Not by throwing away what we've already had. Within the context of what we have, we create more. Isn't that beautiful? This is a beautiful, beautiful spread. Love this spread. I love how there are so many echoes. In the center, we had all of those moon associations. Here we've got all of these sun associations on the sun side. Now we've got the Queen of Wands with her sunflower. We've got the sun card with the sunflowers. The Knight of Swords was below, but bursting into the light. Lovely side of the spread. So consciously, that's what we want to do. We want to do what we can to reclaim our Queen of Wands. And we do that by regaining our mental energy, focusing on our sun, positivity, optimism. And then our Queen of Wands will reveal her, him, themselves. This is lovely, delicious. We've still got a moon side to take care of, to look at. Let's look at the moon. Okay, we're not looking at the moon, we're looking at the moon column, the unconscious column of this spread. That's what I meant to say. And from the top to bottom, we got the Nine of Swords. Some scary cards here, right? We got the Nine of Swords, the Page of Swords, and the Death card. Dun, 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 death. And that's where we're going to start this time, this side as well. I wanted to read both sides from bottom to top to center, because both of these seem to be arranged in that order. So let's start with Death. Let's get that one over right off the bat. Death. It's an interesting Death card. Yeah, different from Pamela Coleman Smith's art, where we have the skeleton riding the horse with the large flag, and we see perhaps a church figure, a bishop maybe on their knees in front of the horse, and another younger person beside the bishop, leaning on the bishop, having lost energy and perhaps pleading and praying. We see dead people on the ground. Death comes for all humans kind of image. This one we do have, and it's a little difficult to see. Let me show it to you. We do have a Grim Reaper figure. It's there. You can see the scythe probably. You can probably see the skeleton arm holding the scythe, right? You can see the birds. They're not difficult to see. Seeing the rest of the Grim Reaper figure was difficult for me. You know? The Grim Reaper's cloak is this grayish part here. Yeah? The gray coming up the back over to a hood, and gray here, and gray up the center here. And then you notice this kind of black, dark color with spots looking kind of like a night sky. That's inside of the cloak. That is the face and body of the Grim Reaper. Yeah? Inside of the cloak, we see the heavens, the night sky. And on the Grim Reaper's shoulder, there is a raven or a crow. Some black bird of death for some cultures. Not all cultures. For some cultures. And so death. We don't see those other figures. We just see the Grim Reaper figure and symbols of the bird. And the night sky, which is lovely. Because death being only bone is a little limiting, right? Death can be expansive in a way. What does death mean? It can be endings. It can be suffering. And sometimes we get that feeling. Yeah, when the honeymoon starts to end and we start getting triggered, we might start feeling those feelings of this is about to end, right? The death card. But instead of just endings, this card is one of transformation and transition and change. The end of a honeymoon period is reminding us that stagnation is real death. It's stagnation is an ending. But we have the option to change, to transform, to grow, to deepen, to enrich whatever that relationship is, be it a human relationship or a relationship to an object or a relationship to an activity, whatever that is. That relationship can deepen and grow and transform, become something richer. However, we do sometimes go to that other side of the death card when the honeymoon ends. We start feeling that, oh my God, things are ending. Are we breaking up? What are we breaking up? Again, with a person, with a job, with a house, whatever. Are we breaking up? Which leads us right into the Nine of Swords. Yeah, are we breaking up? Is a perfect thought for the Nine of Swords. Now, this is also different from Pamela Coleman Smith's art, right? In Pamela Coleman Smith's art, we see a person in a bed covered by the whole zodiac. Now, there is protection there. But sitting up at night with 9 swords on the wall behind them, a very dark black wall behind them, holding their faces. And it's the nightmare card. It's the card of anxiety and worry and fear, grieving, the troubled mind. Yeah, the sword's mind, right? The troubled mind. And so when that honeymoon begins to end, we start feeling that feeling of death. Yeah, things are about to end. This is our normal reaction to that, or often our reaction to that. Yeah, anxiety, worry, fear. Oh my God, maybe I made the wrong choice. Maybe I don't like him, her, it, them, that, whatever, as much as I thought I did. Maybe I was rash in making this decision. Maybe I hadn't thought it all through. Oh my God, what's going to happen? Yeah, those worries, those things. Have you ever felt that? Those worries and anxieties at the end of a honeymoon period. It's good for us to remember that that is a common potential. But you'll notice, especially in this card, do you see, there's what looks like a female presenting figure here with a whole bunch of swords in front of them, pointing towards them. So we still get that idea of nightmare, right? But behind them, there is this huge bear. What do you think of that bear? You see that bear has some claws, right? Is that a dangerous bear? Is it something to be frightened of? Is it one more thing to have a nightmare about? This bear makes me think of a protector, a protective spirit. Even in the face of all those anxieties and worries and fear, we have a protective spirit behind us. Even though she's not paying attention to it, she doesn't look at it, she doesn't remember that bear having her back. Now the bear has her back. She doesn't have that in her conscious memory right now. But the bear is still there. So even when we get into that end of the honeymoon period and we get these anxieties and fears, we can remember that the divine has our back. The eternal nature of ourselves has our back. Your guardian angel has your back if that's your jam, yeah? Your spirit animal has your back if that's your jam. Whatever it is, whatever you feel spiritually, energetically holds you through your experience as spirit in a human body in this physical universe. And that exists. Whatever you want to name that, this card is reminding us of that. That's a beautiful reminder, an important reminder. Because if we can remember that, then those swords in front of us, we notice that nobody is actually lifting them up and starting to jam them in us. They're just swords lying there in front of us on the ground. And Spirit has our back. We have our own backs. And then we can open ourselves and start managing our climate, right? Our mind, which is clenched down in fear and anxiety, can start to open. And as our mind starts to open, the Page of Swords. New ideas, new clarity can come. Our curiosity and our thirst for knowledge can be regained, reattained. Yeah, the Page of Swords. Remember, we had the Knight of Swords in the other deck. Here we have the Page. In the unconscious realm, our inner beginner mind is still available to us, whatever age we are. Our thirst for knowledge is there within us. Our curiosity is there within us and will guide us, will lead us. And maybe this page will help us discover new ways of communicating to ourselves and to others. Our self-talk is often what gets us into this mess, right? So the Page of Swords is going to help us by helping us realize new ways of talking to ourselves, that rectifying, re-examining, and rediscovering new ways of self-talk. More energetic, more positive, more youthful, fresh ways of talking to ourselves and supporting ourselves mentally, and also talking to others. The Page of Swords is the eternal beginner mind for me. And we want to reclaim our beginner mind when we get to the end of that honeymoon period. Does that make sense? And you'll notice that these cards have an interesting balance, right? The Nine of Swords card was balanced by on the other side by the Sun. Anxiety and worry, we can consciously balance that by moving into the Sun and positivity. Yeah? The Death card was balanced on the other side by the Knight of Swords. Yeah, things are changing, and we can Knight of Swords ourselves. We can leap out of that change and into the unknown and claim our transformation, claim the transition that we're moving through. And then the Page of Swords and the Queen of Wands are a wonderful balance. The Queen of Wands is a little bit more mature, independent, self-confident, creator. The Page of Swords is curious, and while the Queen of Wands is curious to a sense, the Page of Swords is pure curiosity. What is all of this? And having that ingenue, that innocent curiosity of the page and the self-confident, self-assured power of the Queen together in balance is a wonderful way to move through our lives, our intentional lives, and be able to transition through the end of a honeymoon period. Does that make sense? Now we've got two very interesting advice cards to take a look at. Let me show you them now. Beautiful cards, right? But before we get to the advice of this spread, let's do a real quick review. So the central cards, what did we have? Honeymoon's end. And we want to be able to, we have a way of navigating ourselves through those endings of honeymoon periods. Yeah, we can manage our climate, and we can be aware of the power that we are receiving. We are constantly receiving blessings, and notice from below that there is wisdom there. We are infused with wisdom. And that wisdom is being portioned out as much as we can handle. And we want to be confident that we will continue receiving wisdom and we can traverse. We have safety to get to, we have a safe space to move into if we need it, but we can also traverse this seeming chaos in the outer world by keeping our focus, by keeping our power focused where it can be used and not letting it spill out into negativity, into criticism, into insecurities, into the triggers. And so on the conscious side, we've got the idea that we can leap into the unknown, regain our positivity, and regain our inner Queen of Wands creativity. On the darker side, on the unconscious side, we want to recognize that yes, we might be feeling this feeling of endings, but that ending might just be a transition. But still we might be feeling the endings, that ending feeling can be giving us anxieties and worries, but Spirit and we ourselves have our own backs. We are surrounded by spiritual and energetic power. And so we can reclaim our inner Page of Swords and our beginner mind and curiosity and finding new ways of communicating to ourselves and others. And so what is the advice? On the sun side, now, did you notice that these cards were in order? 16 and 17 came out in order. This is a very well shuffled deck. It was very interesting to see these two cards come out in order, and they don't stick together very well. So this isn't a sticky deck. It's not because of that. So on the conscious side, what did we have? We had find balance with feedback. Find balance. Remember, that's what we wanted to do to navigate our way through the Two of Cups reversed. We wanted to find our balance so that we don't tip out of balance with our thoughts or our emotions. So one way to find balance is to be open to feedback. Feedback from the environment. Now we might notice things in our environment, synchronicities, things that, now remember, there are different ways of understanding the idea of trigger. There are triggers, trigger warning, triggers. There are also triggers. Wonderful things in the environment which trigger ideas, which trigger thoughts that we've had, which are synchronicities. Now, synchronicities trigger thoughts within us that spark our intuitive wisdom, our knowledge that we hold within us. So that we can get feedback from that, from the environment. We can get feedback from our bodies. Our bodies will often tell us what's good for us, what's not so good for us, what is beneficial, what's not beneficial. Where is our tension being held? Where is our negativity being held in our bodies? There's feedback there. And that if we pay attention to that feedback, we can let those tensions and anxieties or whatever it is diffuse and regain our balance. There's also feedback from people around us, written or verbal. Actual, what we think of feedback. Some of it could be criticism, but some of it could be compliments, right? Feedback can be, you're doing a really good job in this area. Feedback could be, well, have you noticed how this doesn't really seem to be working for you? Now, there are different kinds of feedback, and all of it can help us find our balance if we allow it to. If we demand constant reinforcement and pats on the back, constant congratulations for being alive in our bodies, and we refuse anything else, then we are not balanced human beings. We want a spectrum of feedback. Otherwise, we're not going to learn as easily and as quickly as we possibly could. So we want to get all of that feedback in and discern how to get our balance back. We want to make continual adjustments and become more aware. More aware of are karmic reactions, yeah? We do things in the world and there's a response. That's what karma is, right? People think of it like karmic debt, and some people believe in that karmic debt being carried from lifetime to lifetime. I do not. But there is a karma. We act in the world and there is a reaction. We put thoughts and communications out into the world and there is a reaction. That's what karma is to me. And to be able to navigate more balanced, we want to be more aware of what we're putting out into the world and how that serves us and others or not. And remembering that feedback that this card is telling us to pay attention to is both positive and negative, and we want to be aware of all of it. To be mature human beings in these bodies. Because we are human beings. We exist in these bodies that we are co-creating, living our intentional lives. And this card is beautiful because, do you see that star? That shooting star? That hope is there in this card. We're not just looking at, oh, I'm not good enough, I haven't gotten it done, I'm not good enough, I'm not smart enough, I'm not bright enough, I keep making mistakes. That's not what this card is here to remind us of. We notice the mistakes and we course correct. We notice the good and we course correct. We make adjustments. We do this consciously. Remember, this was on the conscious side of the spread. And unconsciously, in the shadowier, the less conscious portion of the spread, the moon side, we had renewable resources. And when I think of renewable resources, I immediately think of things like the Green New Deal for people in the United States, or recycling, or plant-based diets, or renewable energy sources, solar power, wind power, all of those things, renewable resources. Even hemp is part of the renewable resources discussion these days. But that's not all this card is reminding us of. We are a renewable resource as well. And I don't only mean that when the body dies, that the body disintegrates and feeds plants and stuff like that. That's part of it, and it can be part of it, but that's not all it is. We are a resource that renews itself. For example, when we sleep, we renew ourselves, right? When we are fed by wonderful emotional experiences, we are fed. We renew ourselves. So this card is asking us to examine what can we create to balance our consumption in the world. Now, we consume things. What can we create and put out into the world? That's one way in which we are a renewable resource. We create as well as consume. We also want to seek input again. In this area, we want input in all areas from those who know ways that we can contribute. Beginner mind of the Page of Swords, right? We want to be able to be open to exchanging our knowledge and our skills with those around us, because not only does that empower those who receive what we are sharing, it empowers us as well. And it creates a cycle of receiving and giving knowledge and skill. So how can we put our own renewable energy and resources into good use into the world? And that's what the Page of Swords is here to remind us to be curious about. How do I contribute? How do I contribute to this relationship that now seems to be losing its shine? How am I contributing to the end of the honeymoon? How am I contributing to the end of the honeymoon in this job? And what can I share in this job to be the renewable resource? Whatever the experience is that seems like we've come to the end of the honeymoon, how am I contributing to that endedness? And what can I do to navigate and also to give as much as I receive? To be the renewable resource in the experience. That's living an intentional life. Is it not? What do you think? I think this is an important reading, an important spread. I think I've gained a lot from it. How about you? Have you gained something from this spread? Have you realized, remembered all these things, yeah? Recognized aspects of yourself in this spread as well? I'd love to hear from you. If you have, I'd love it if you hit the thumbs up button so YouTube knows that you and other people, you have enjoyed this and other people might enjoy it as well. Also, hit the alarm bell and subscribe to the channel if you haven't subscribed. I put up videos twice a week at least. And also, comment below. I would really love to hear from you. What do you think? What has this made you think about? What memories has this triggered? When have you circumnavigated that end of the honeymoon well? And when have you not? So many things for us to reflect upon from this spread. And friends, if you want a private reading from me, my email address is below. Shoot me an email and we'll get you a reading. And friends, now, as always, I wish you love, joy, well-being, and pure awareness. Thank you.